Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Ron Mortimer with Horrocks Engineers, 2162 West Road, Pleasant Grove, Utah. I appreciate the opportunity to present this information. I do want to apologize, though. I am an engineer, so you're going to have to bear with me. I'm not going to be like Bruce. So wade through this information. I apologize for that. I do have some graphics, though, that I hope are going to help through the discussion. Assisting me here at the computer is Jason Klopp, and then John Norring's also in the audience to help answer any questions we have. Jason, can you just start us through here? I'm going to go as quickly as I can. The items we want to talk about is the site, the subdivision, the soccer field itself, look at some renderings of it, of what we understand it's going to look like, get into the traffic study, the information in it, and then also show some what we call micro simulation, and that's so you can visually see what we're trying to say in traffic terms. As a setting for that, I want to also let you know that we've been working with staff. I have worked with Paul Goodrich for a lot of years, even before he was here at Orem City. We sit down as we start into these types of projects and lay out what we think are all the critical details. And then some of those evolve as things, as information comes forward. We sit down, we talk about it, we relate that, and we come to the solutions and recommendations that we think are best for the city and also the client that we represent. We realize that our analysis is based on sciences that have occurred within the industry. We stay within those boundaries and limits. Sometimes it makes people happy, sometimes it makes them sad, but the results are what the information says. This first graph just shows generally the entire layout. You can see the bottom portion of it. Jason, if you want to show with your mouse, shows where the park is, near the roundabout, and then it goes into the residential portion on the top half. Next slide, we kind of zoom into that a little bit to give you a little bit closer detail. This is the northern portion, just a subdivision. You can see the large lot layout. The exact layout may vary slightly, but that's typically how it's going to be connected into the neighborhoods. The next one is a closer view of what the park is currently proposed as. You can see the soccer fields in the middle, off to the northwest, our tennis courts there in the smaller boxes, and then you can see the parking around the south end towards 800 North or along 850. And then within there, the dark line is a jogging trail, a pedestrian trail that goes around the park. We've tried to lay that out in accordance that will be an enhancement to the park, but not will be intrusive to the neighborhoods. Next slide, Jason. This is Lakeside Park. That's kind of been one of the recent parks. That's what we tried to envision out there. However, as we get into this, the park that we're talking about has a lot more enhancements to it, especially in the landscaping and the trees. But this was kind of the benchmark that we started with. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. This is our first concept I wanted to show you, looking to the northwest. You can see along the eastern side of that, along the trail, the pedestrian trail. Jason, can you, yeah, along there you can see the landscaping. That landscaping we've been very particular about.
Should we turn these lights out so you can see that better?
They can, in the audience?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, we want to.
Did you remember there's some people back here?
If I turned around, I might faint.
Okay.
Again, you know, I'm not used to seeing such a popular guy.
I want to turn some dim on the camera shot or not.
Can you just turn these off so the people can see?
Paul's working his way to the back there to see what.
There you go.
Don't go to sleep. And just for this, we'll turn right back on.
All right, I'll continue. Boy, this makes me feel a lot more comfortable now. I can see just fine. Okay, you can see looking northwest, we show, Jason, can you again show that eastern side of the park where the landscaping is in the trail? We tried to enhance that particular part. If you're familiar with what's to the east of the city hall here and some of the landscaping, it's got some berming in there, some undulation, variations to help with view and any other items, the plantings and stuff, to give it kind of a little bit of a more passive look to it. Feel it'll be an enhancement on that side to kind of block the view into the active part of the park. You can see on the far west side that there's a line of trees that already exist. Our plan is to preserve those and keep those. Jason, if you want to go to the next, oh, I'm talking to the other side on the west side, Jason, the trees over there.
Where the arrow is.
There you go. That's not an arrow, that's part of the maintenance shed. It looks like it.
Oh.
Next slide, Jason. We've got several views of this to get perspective. Here we are down towards 800 North at the bottom of the roundabout looking up. Next one, Jason. As you can see, the parking lot is oriented to try to get the traffic closest to the main arterial, 800 North, so we get the traffic in and out of the site. And I'll go into that into more detail as we talk about the traffic study. Next, Jason. Just another view, keep going. Here's a more active look at the park, the active part of it with the pavilion and the playground. This is one of the ideas or concepts. Next one, Jason. Now these are some of the street views that you'll see. This is the looking to the northwest from inside the parking lot as you enter in by the roundabout. One more, Jason. Now you're standing up in the northeast corner of the soccer field. So you'd have the trees to the back of you looking across to the west. This is kind of perspective of the tennis courts in that area. We do know that the fencing here is a typical layout. It's not going to be particular like that, but there will be some associated with it. You can see the walking trail around there and the maintenance shed off to the right. Next, Jason. Again, this is a perspective if you were standing over at 1400 East looking into the park. You can see the fencing and the landscaping, and you can see clear across to the far west side to the trees. That's going to be protected. You can see there's some rise in the landscaping there, and then there it dips back down. It's got the berm, and we just have kind of rendering of the different types of trees that we anticipate being built out there, and the fence that's going to be installed along there. Next, Jason. Okay, now we'll get a little bit more into the traffic. The yellow circles indicate the areas that we did our traffic counts by hand to get the peak hour traffic to know where each car was turning to and from. And then the blue segments there show where we put our hose counters out. We installed those at 2 different times. We did it during the school break, the spring break, and then we did it after the spring break. So we have the traffic data during that period of time and after that period of time both. Next one, Jason. What we've done now is taken the trip generation of what we anticipate the entire project, not just the residential portion or the parks. We also, to be conservative, one of the things that is typical to Utah County is the trip generation is a little bit higher than the national averages. We tend to have a little bit larger homes, we own more cars, and so we modified the trip generation for the residential portion to reflect that. Rather than going with the 10 typical trips per dwelling unit, we bumped that up another 50% or so to reflect what we have. And those are based on counts that have been done in subdivisions. We get a feel for what is a typical single-family dwelling unit trip generation. Well, not only did we apply that to the residential portions, which are fairly minor based on the number of units, but with the park, we increased it on the same percentage basis. We assumed that if a home generates higher than normal traffic usage, that the park would reflect that same type of usage. So rather than use the national averages, we bumped those up consistent with the same as we'd see in the traffic. Hopefully that's not confusing for anyone. Right now, if you look at the numbers up there, during our PM peak hour, which is our highest traffic volume in the area around here, 5 to 6 p.m., I'm sorry, that to the west of the project, we have 59 vehicles on that corridor. On the east side, we have 47. That is roughly about 1 car a minute occurring at that particular time. And with this project, you can see the volumes, how we're going to add an additional 10 trips, an additional 9 on either side of that. The majority of the traffic outside of that will go out to 800 North, or will travel across Palisades and go to the south. Now, from a total trip generation project, we put this project in the regional traffic model that is maintained by Mountain Lands Association of Government to get a feel for where the destinations will be. And based on those percentages, there's about 5 to 10% of the project traffic generated here wants to go into the northwest neighborhoods. That's where their origin or destination is. That's where they have a concern about being traffic-wise. Now, this model will also account for cut-through traffic that wants to go through there, because the links are based on the current operating speeds on the roadways themselves. So any cut-through traffic that wants to go, the model will allow that to occur. It doesn't prohibit any vehicle from going any direction it wants to. And the model will say, okay, during this particular time, during this peak hour time, this is the best way that I want to go for travel times. So as you say, well, people want to cut through various neighborhoods, that is occurring within the model. And then when it wants to stay in the arterial streets, it'll stay out there. Usually it wants to do that because it gets from its origin to its destination quickest. You can see we have about a 12% traffic going to the east and west of the project. The remainder of that traffic goes to 800 North or continues further south on Palisades. Next, Jason. A particular interest here is the operations of this Palisades Drive intersection. I'm sure everybody in here is familiar that when you approach that intersection, you make that left turn going into it right now, it is a fairly difficult movement, especially during peak times, because there's no green arrow out there. You just have to yield to oncoming traffic. So typically what happens during the peak time from 5 to 6 is you wait there until the cycle changes and you go through during the yellow or the all red phase and you cut through. You can typically get 2 cars in there, but on a day where drivers are feeling a little more aggressive, you may get as many as 3 or even 4 that will crowd through that intersection, depending on the number of cars in the left turn pocket shown by the red arrow. Well, when we analyze this, the level of service of that particular movement under today's conditions currently right now is level service F. You'll see on the table, if you go further to the right, the overall intersection is actually operating fairly well at level service A. That one particular movement, though, is a very difficult movement to make. When we add the project, you'll see the delay goes from 86 seconds to 140 seconds. That's a significant increase. The level of service stays at F. That's the worst level of service we can have. And you'll see the total intersection goes from 8 to 10.6 seconds. So it leaves level service A, goes to B. We took a look at what the challenge is of working with that, and we decided that, hey, if we go out there and install a left turn arrow, we can change things. The challenge is that guess who owns the intersection is UDOT. But that's not a decision that the city makes or that we can make. We can make recommendations. We have had conversations with UDOT, and we have worked with them in other cities, in addition to Orem, throughout the entire county and even the state. Going back and adding this left turn arrow, protected arrow, is a very beneficial thing. I'm sure those that have traveled out there would appreciate that when they're sitting there, that there's some detection to know they're there and allow them to have a green arrow to make that turn, especially during peak times. With that left turn phase, you can see the delay drops way down, even better than it currently is. It goes from 86 to 26 seconds. The left turn goes from level service F to C, and then the total intersection goes from 8 seconds to 9.4. You say, well, why does that actually increase? We go back to the level of service A, but what we're doing is we're holding the opposing westbound through traffic on 800 North just long enough to let those left turns clear. That little bit of delay that we're holding those through trips is now showing up in the intersection level of service, the delay there. However, with that improvement, though, the overall operation of this intersection is going to be much better, and it's actually going to be safer than it is without that arrow. We're going to allow traffic to get in and out. Why is that important? Because when the park starts to operate, people will want to get into that as fast and as convenient as possible. By improving the intersection, it's going to make entry into that park and exit out of that park just a little bit better. You might ask, well, how are you going to get out of that park better? Well, the southbound right turn, Jason, if you can show the arrow up there, that particular right turn now is going to have a chance to go on a right turn on red when that left turn arrow is green. They're going to be able to shadow that. So we're actually going to be able to get traffic out of that intersection, the right turn, faster than they are today. One of the things we looked at in the overall operations of this project is the roundabout. Paul was very concerned about, do we have enough capacity to handle this traffic through that roundabout? We took a very critical look at that. And the conclusion is, yes, the roundabout can handle this traffic. It actually has the ability to handle much more than what we're putting into it today. And one of our analysis methods went through, we actually increased the traffic tenfold through the roundabout just to test its ability, and it did handle the traffic. Well, one of the comments that came back to the neighborhood meetings was to get the traffic in and out of the park as fast as possible. As a result, that access then going into the park through the roundabout became pretty important because it's a direct link to 800 North. Instead of going through the driveways off to the east and west, as they navigate through that roundabout, they can get to the signal just a little bit faster and a little bit easier maneuvering. And we want to show you that. Jason, if you can. Oh, I'm sorry. I got a few more slides I want to talk about. There was other concerns that came up. One was the site distance on the west side of the project there at the corner of the golf course. If you've been out there, there's some heavy vegetation. Jason, do you want to show with your cursor where that's at? Go back one slide and show that corner there, kind of by the blue tick mark, right in there. Yeah. Now go ahead and go back to the slide. Recommendation that we worked out with the city traffic engineer, Paul Goodrich, is to install an advisory sign to let them know that to lower their speeds to go through that corner. We're also going to remove some of the vegetation there. That was one of the mitigations that we need to build with this project. Next, Jason. Yeah. There is some discussion about pedestrian crossings along the 1240 East Street. One of the things that we identified is wherever we install crosswalks or along there, we also want to install these pedestrian flashers. These are pedestrian activated, so as you come up to the crosswalk, you'll push a button and the lights will flash to allow motorists to see that there's somebody there. Those things are becoming very common in crosswalks. These are not school crossings, so these are just pedestrian crossings. And if those are installed along 1240 East, it's recommended that they allow these signs to go in with those. Okay, Jason, next. Again, I want to talk about the existing conditions. Jason, if you want to just bring that in, our analysis. What we have here is a video clip of our simulation that we do. This shows the actual traffic volumes. This is existing conditions today. You can see the left turn pocket going into the project and from 800 North, and also the right turn pocket comes out. Those are your two challenging movements in there. This analysis has been based on the current traffic volumes that are in the vicinity based on our counts. And this model reflects all types of vehicle users and vehicle types, whether it be heavy trucks, medium trucks, aggressive cars, and also conservative cars, those that are traveling slow. And we use this same thing as we go from one scenario to the next. And you notice as you get into the peak hour, you have to drive faster. We're actually kind of speeding this up so it doesn't look as painful. That's our existing condition that we use to establish the base. Next, we add the project traffic on top of that. And Jason's going to bring that one up next. And as you zoom into that, Jason, show them where the approach into the, there's the approach into the park right there, and you'll see the traffic. Now look at how that left turn queue is built up with the addition of the park traffic and the residential units. You can see that that left turn pocket is now being fully utilized. And you're not going to clear every cycle those vehicles. And the same, you can see the vehicles exiting on the right turn pocket. They're not going to clear out of there as much. Both of those become a challenging movement out of the project. You'll see a couple left turns will come in the cycle and the right turns when it's a green, and then it becomes difficult to make a right turn out of there. So as we change just that phasing on the signal, Jason, if we can show that. Again, this is the PM peak hour, 5 to 6. This is the worst hour of the day in the week. And then you'll see here, again, it is the exact same volumes. The only thing we've done is simulated the left turn arrow there. And you can see that that left turn cue is actually disappeared. This is the exact same time frame for both the left turns in and the right turns out. You can see the traffic coming in and out of the park. Now, at this particular time, we've actually put in the traffic for the 3 soccer fields and the active use of the park. And we're pulling that traffic out of there. And we're using a what-if scenario, assuming that everybody wants to get out of there and leave at about the same time within that peak hour period. They're trying to get out of there. And you'll see the improvements. Now, Jason, if you want to show, the last one is kind of a combination screen, a split screen, showing the 2 side by side. You can see here's a comparison. Watching the 2 traffic patterns simply by mitigating that signal. We're hoping that by doing this, that it really does increase the amount of traffic, allows it to 800 north and disperse on the arterial rather than using any of the residential streets. There's not a big reason for traffic to move over to the east side of the project. We have an unsignalized intersection to 800 north. It's a very difficult movement to make during any kind of normal daytime hours, whether in the morning, midday, or in the afternoon.